Andrew Charlton, we saw a grim warning from NAB's chief economist Alan Oster on Chris Kenny's show last night that we might need to go, or that the RBA could opt in for a recession, a technical recession, perhaps in order to tame rising inflation. I spoke to Warren Hogan on my program yesterday. He said the concern is whether we actually are looking at a deeper recession later this year and into next year. What are your concerns? What do you think we're in for with the Australian economy?
Well, the first thing to say is that the government is not forecasting a recession, and that's also not the forecast of the Independent Reserve Bank. But look, it's true that recession or no recession, people in Australia are doing it tough. They are experiencing very high inflation. They are experiencing significant additions to their mortgage costs as interest rates go up, and they've had a long period of low wages growth. And so that's why it makes it incredibly important that the government prosecutes its economic agenda, which is about making sure that we deliver fiscal savings to put the economy in a very strong position. It means making sure we deliver productivity improvements through additional TAFE places, investments in education, investments in infrastructure. And it means making sure that we show restraint in all aspects of government spending, which culminated in the delivery of Australia's first surplus in more than a decade. So for us, the forecast is not for a recession, but it doesn't change our resolve to put our country in the best possible economic position to weather whatever storm comes at us from around the world.
It is going to hurt families though, Bridget. You know, we saw today a report by journalist Shane Wright that over 200,000 Australians could lose their jobs. I mean, this is going to hurt a lot of people.
Absolutely, and just listening to Andrew's talking points from Jim Chalmers' office, I mean, I've got to pull him up on a couple of things. The way we're actually going to avoid a recession and a significant and severe recession is actually by boosting productivity and watching wasteful government spending. And the last budget increases government spending over the next 5 years by $185 billion. They've cut and delayed infrastructure projects across the country in the $120 billion infrastructure pipeline. Their industrial relations policies, again, are going to be another handbrake if business is to be believed, and therefore drive unemployment up going forward. And these are huge concerns. So for the Labor Party to sit here and say that these are overseas factors, when it is directly their tax policies, their IR policies, they simply ignored the Productivity Commission recommendations.
Andrew, is the government doing enough? Do you want to respond to Bridget's accusations there?
Well, unfortunately for Bridget, the numbers speak for themselves. This is the first surplus that's been delivered in more than a decade. It's something that the Liberals could not do in their entire 3 terms of office. They printed the back in black mugs, but they weren't able to put the coffee into them. This is something that the Labor Party has done in its first year in office. And so it's important that we use that surplus to build up the fiscal buffers. It is true that difficult circumstances are coming at us from around the world. We've got extremely difficult situation in the United States, very challenging economic circumstances in the European Union. And so for Australia to rebuild those fiscal buffers, which were run down so badly in the last government, to make sure we put ourselves in the best possible position by getting inflation down and by supporting families with cost of living relief where we can. Those are the critical ingredients of making sure that Australia is in the best position to weather any global storm. And those are 3 things that the Liberal Party just didn't do and probably couldn't do.